Paul, writing to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter number 4, stated, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy." The reason they are able to lie so boldly and vociferously is having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Having their conscience seared with a hot iron. I was dealing with the lie of climate change and the lie of rising sea levels. Now, I was pointing out yesterday a matter that is called eustatic sea level rise. Now, there is an ebb and flow in the sea levels around the world today. And I pointed out to you that one of the reasons that changes in sea level occurs because of the basin shape. And as the bottom of the seafloor changes through seismic and geological processes, sedimentation, various and sundry things, that would cause an adjustment in sea level. Secondly, the changes in water temperature also have an effect on sea level rise. According to NOAA's own facts and their own research, the kind of sea level rise that's propagated by people like Al Gore and other alarmists would take more than 1,000 years for the sea levels to rise as they say they are going to. Then today, thirdly, glaciarization is a third factor that affects ocean volume. Geologists identify that at least 9 ice ages in Earth's history, interrupted by relatively short, warmer intergalactical periods, have transpired. During these glacial phases, ice covers large parts of the northern hemisphere at latitudes as far south as Chicago and Boston. Oceans provide water for these vast sheets of ice, dramatically affecting the sea level. Quote, about 21,000 years ago, and this now is according to the article that I'm reading, during the last glacial maximum, sea level was about 125 meters, 410 feet lower than it is today. It reads the website from the Department of the Interior U.S. Geological Survey. Long before that, during warmer climatic intervals, sea level was about 6 meters or about 19.7 feet higher than it is today. As temperatures remain relatively stable, which they have for the last 20 years, sea level rise from melting glacier poses little concern. Now, the climatologists and the environmentalists come back and they say, but there's an apparent sea level rise. While used to see results in real sea level changes, a number of factors can trick us into thinking that sea level is rising when it really isn't. There is a fact called subduction, in which such is one such phenomenon. The edge of one tectonic plate overlaps another, influencing local tidal readings with the impression that the sea level varies since an observer's reference point changes. Japan, which sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, quote unquote, where a large number of earthquakes and volcanoes occur, offers an example of subduction's effect. Tidal gauges at Awase on the eastern shore record a drop in mean sea level at a rate of 0.44 feet per 100 years. That's about 1.3 millimeters a year. While those in Hamada on the west coast log a rise at a rate of 1.68 feet per century, about 5.1 millimeters per year. The sea level at Awajima on the island on the inland Uwase has dropped 0.95 feet during the same time period, about 2.9 meters a year. Then there is this phenomena called subsidence, and it goes in hand with subduction. It is a gradual caving or sinking of land. Sinkholes are extreme instances like that which swallowed 2 Florida houses in July of 2017. But subsidence usually occurs slowly. A portion of New Zealand's eastern coastline has been gradually sinking by a few millimeters each year, lending to an annual sea level rise of up to 6 millimeters. Prior to the earthquake last November of 2017 that raised the area by nearly 5 feet. If sea level is rising, we have to add the Teutonic effect to get the true sea level change. Quote unquote, Professor Tim Stern told Stuff, quote, it's a very important data sheet for New Zealanders to understand. Other factors that cause apparent sea level change are displacement and isosty. Displacement produces volcanic islands such as those in Hawaii and the Philippines. Imagine being inside a balloon and poking your finger toward the outside. There will be a protruding bump while the remaining balloon surface retracts. Similarly, the Earth has just the same non-water mass. As mass goes into new kinds of block, other areas will unwillingly contribute, with a resulting apparent increase in sea level. Isostasy relates to the rebound in a landmass after the loss of its glacial burden, a phenomenon still occurring since the last ice age, giving the observer an apparent drop in sea level. Now, with all of these moving factors, how is it that we're to actually measure the sea level with all of these moving things? Measuring the local sea level at your beach house would seem a very simple process. You walk out in the yard or so into the surf, drive a stake in the sand, and when the water reaches the highest point, you cut a notch. And when it recedes, you cut a notch at the lowest point. You measure halfway between the two, and you have your mean sea level. But not really. When you go back the next week, you will likely be cutting new notches. If you cut your first notch when the moon was full, or a new moon, a spring tide, then you will find both your low and high water notches respectively lower and higher. Since the sun and moon are aligned, their combined tidal pull increases high tides and lowers low tides. On the other hand, twice a month, the sun and the moon form right angles at the earth, the first to third quarter moon phase. Thus, gravitational pull is minimized, and the resulting neap tide evidences lower high tides and higher low tides. Soon your stake is riddled with notches all over it from tidal changes and more. Remember Superstorm Sandy, with her high winds and storm surges. Winds and storm surges at sea frequently affect your notch cutting process by piling up tides and retarding their flow back to the sea. Other influences like subduction and subsidence are also at work. But how do you measure their effects? It obviously takes many measurements and compensations to arrive at a local mean level. For the planet, the job is even more complicated. The recognized authority is the permanent surface for mean sea level at the Bidston Observatory in the United Kingdom. Established in 1933, this observatory includes records as early as 1856 in New York. Most of its data is based on measurements for more than 1,700 tidal gauges worldwide, while primarily for assisting sailors, fishermen, and coastal communities with expected tidal conditions. The gauges also provide data for determining mean sea level and long-term trends. However, in terms of Earth's history, a century or so amounts to a mere blip on the radar. All of the environmentalists that are talking about the rising sea levels and Florida being flooded and Manhattan being flooded, none of them are dealing with all of these variables that have to be dealt with by scientists. So there are many factors that are involved in actually where the water level, the sea level, might be at a particular time and in a particular place. We'll continue our study in the false religion of environmentalism by the grace of God on the program coming Monday. Tomorrow, my late grandfather.
Greenville, South Carolina 29602. This is Mark Ferguson saying be by your